Good evening, my name is Jeff Van Landingham and I'm an alcoholic. I don't like it when people try and shake my hand that I'm coming in for a hug. Should tell you everything you need to know about me, really. Because of God, AA actions taken in Alcoholics Anonymous, really good sponsorship. My sobriety date is March 16th, 1992. And thank you for that half-assed applause. I gave credit away. I wasn't taking it because of me. Anyway, I want to thank the committee, of course, for asking me to participate in such a wonderful event as Stateline. And here we go again now as we embark upon a journey through the 12 steps this weekend. I want to thank my host, Leslie. Leslie and I are really good friends, and we've become the type of friends I describe us as peers. And we're the type of peers that we call each other with things that we don't want to bother our sponsor with, right? So I'll get something in my head, and I'll be like, I don't want to bother Bob with this. I'll bother Leslie. She's not doing anything. And then we'll call each other and talk each other off whatever ledge that we're on that respective day. And it's invaluable. And you know, I look and I met her lovely husband, Dave, and I saw the photos of the wedding in Hawaii last month that I was not invited to, and that's fine. But I got to tell you, when I looked at these photos, and I had two distinct reactions, and the first of which is that because I do know Leslie so well, I was overcome with joy for what Alcoholics Anonymous can do for people like us. It can take broken individuals whose spirit is sick and heal us and mend us. It chips away the pieces of us that are objectionable and that block us off from a power greater than ourselves. And it allows us to make this connection. And once that connection is made, great events come to pass, including the wonderful idea of finding someone that you can love and that loves you back. And I'm so, so happy for Leslie. The other thing that I thought of when I looked at those pictures is good luck, Dave. So much good luck, Dave. Anyway, thank you, Leslie, for yelling at me to get going. I also want to thank, I've enjoyed all the speakers, of course, I always do. In particular, I want to thank Maury for that very riveting workshop on the 12 traditions. I found myself learning things about the traditions. I've always been an admirer of what a staunch defender of the traditions that you are, because we need people like that. I also learned other valuable tidbits. I've got a couple of guys back home who dabble in 13th stepping. And now when I get back, we'll take them to the barber and give them the Dr. Bob. And see how charming they are now. And never thought of that. So thank you. I'm happy to be here. I don't expect to be here, and to be quite honest with you, I'm always a little surprised that I'm here. And let me explain to you what I mean. And I'm going to tell you a story that I am in no way embellishing. This is exactly how this has happened. I was first asked to talk at Stateline like 6 years ago. Of course, I was shocked then, and came down and talked on Thursday night, and I thought, okay, good, I'm done. Because Stateline, I'm sorry, it's intimidating, right? It is. It's an there's people from all over the world here. You bomb here, the whole globe is talking about you. And, no, I don't want to go to France. People don't like me there. So it's a lot of pressure. And by the way, anyone who's going to come up to me and give me these helpful hints, like, it's just your story, don't worry about it, save it, that doesn't help. So anyway, I talk at Stateline, I don't die. I'm like, okay, good. Then they call back and they said, hey, that went really well, we'd like you to come back again. And I said, listen, the talk that I gave was a fluke, and that will never happen again. It's a mistake to ask me back. And they said, well, we'll roll the dice. So I came back and I talked. And then they called again. And they said, we'd like you to come back again. And I said, listen, you're not going to believe it, but those first two talks were a fluke. And that's never going to happen again, right? You can see the pattern developing. So this year when they called me, They said, "We would like you to come to Stateline and give a fluke." And I thought, fluke me. And so here I am. And my job tonight, I'm going to be talking about step one. And I believe Alcoholics Anonymous is a wonderful organization. It's hard not to. You're sitting in this room, you look around, you hear the laughter, you see the light in people's eyes. But there is a barrier towards my membership, and that barrier is the simple fact, the indisputable truth, that I am not really an alcoholic. That is my problem. I wish that I was, but I am not an alcoholic. And sometimes when I say that, people will giggle and laugh and stuff, but I don't mean it to be humorous. You know, treatment centers have made popular the word denial, right? They've come forward and pitched this idea that we are alcoholics, we live in denial. They make light of it. They put it on shirts. Denial is more than just a river in Egypt or wherever the hell denial is. I don't know, I'm not that smart, but I don't suffer from denial. I will tell you what denial is. When I was about 30 years old, I started going gray. I started getting gray hair. And I would look in the mirror and I would think, my hair seems to be lightening from the sun. And I live in Fargo, North Dakota, where we get 2 hours of sun a year. My hair is not lightening. And I knew what was going on. I knew exactly what was going on, but I tell myself something else. What I suffer from is a delusion. A delusion that if I don't find a way through it is going to kill me. And the delusion is just this: I am not really an alcoholic. I know you think that I am. I know that you mean well when you tell me that I am, but trust me when I tell you there's something else wrong with me. And I can prove it, okay? I'm not just going to pontificate this. I will give you evidence as to why I am not really an alcoholic. First of all, I'm not someone who is doing well in life. And then when suddenly I start drinking, and when I start drinking, it unlocks this chest of character defects that start coming out, right? Because of the alcohol, I become dishonest and self-seeking. I have trouble at work. I have trouble with money because I drink too much. I was screwed up way before I ever took a drink. There's been something wrong with me in my spirit from as far back as I can remember. And there's absolutely nothing in my upbringing that should cause me to feel the way that I feel. I was raised in a home, I was loved, I had two parents who did not drink. My dad was in Vietnam and he drank one night and blacked out and never drank again because he was scared. What the hell? And it's like, Dad, you got to push through that. My mother had one glass of wine on Christmas Eve. And later on, years later, was sobbing at some treatment thing I was in, wondering if her abusing alcohol on Christmas Eve had caused me to be alcoholic. Maybe. I don't know. I was still back in manipulation then, but so nobody showed me any of this. I feel incomplete. That's the best way I know to describe it. There's something missing inside of me. And I live my life terribly afraid that one day the whole world is going to wake up and discover that I am not what I pretend to be. I'm not like other people. I don't respond the way you look like you respond. Right? I walk through life with a perception problem. I walk through life with a racy mind. I walk through life a prey to emotions, and I feel emotions extremely intensely. I don't get happy, I get ecstatic. I don't get blue, I get suicidal, right? I don't get perturbed at things, I get rageful. And oftentimes, within a 5-minute span, I can bounce from one to the next to the next. I take everything that's going on around me personally. Everything going on is about me. How I feel right now is the most important thing in my universe. I'm an extremely selfish and self-centered individual, and I don't even know that I am. I take everything that I have happen to me personally. I walk in to the hotel, and the poor lady is just doing her job and trying to check me in, and so she smiles at me and welcomes me to the Tuscany. But I could hear something in her voice that seemed a little bit more than just welcoming me to the Tuscany. And I'm like, oh, right, here we go, right? You can't even smile at me. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, yes, absolutely. This could be Mrs. Van Lanningham, and our kids will be beautiful with dark hair, and it's going to be awesome. And I'll shape up. God, what a great life this will be. By the way, I maybe should add, I'm using a hypothetical example. This didn't actually happen to me here at the Tuscany, because if my wife hears this CD, I may be back on the prowl. But in this fictitious universe that I'm describing, that has happened many a times, she smiles at me and I think something's going on, and then it happens. I see the wedding ring. And I crash back to earth, right? I'm, oh my God, who could ever love me? And I'll never find anyone. And this is how it is for me. And I don't know what to do with any of this stuff. I don't even know how to express this to people, that this is what goes on in my head. I have a perception problem, and I am extremely sensitive, right? Years later, I would start meeting a therapist, and she was telling me, she said, Jeff, it's not that uncommon that if people say mean things to you that your feelings might get hurt. That's just human nature. Like, yeah, but nobody's actually saying anything to me, usually. She's like, well, then what is it that's hurting your feelings? I sense that they want to say mean things. And she was giving me a pretty odd look, right? I'm like, look, I'm not just randomly, but I can tell. I read body language, tones of voice, right? You have that ability? Have the ability to read tones of voice? I've gotten my feelings hurt on someone saying, hey, Jeff, good to see you here. What the hell did that mean, good to see me here? You think you're more active than me in AA? And believe me, it's really hard being me. Sensitive, right? The littlest things. You know, my friend Lee and I, Lee did such a great job on the history, but I was telling him I caught it when Lee came up. The same thing happened to me tonight. Lee went to hug, and the person that was introducing him went to shake his hand. And guys like Lee and I are not wired that way. Like, no, I'm all in. And Lee did the same thing. He's like, no, give me a hug. And I get it. And my sensitivity, right, I require everyone to treat me special so I feel average. That's how it works for me. When I walk in the door, I need everybody turning around and applauding and high, Jeff's here, everybody. And if you do that, I feel like, okay, yeah, I belong here, I guess. But it doesn't last. I got to be honest with you. You come down here as a speaker to Stateline, a lot of people know you, you feel special. So for a little while, I feel included. And I start to feel so included that I think I should move to Vegas, right? Yeah, move to Vegas. And do you know what would happen if I did? Everyone would accept me, right? Next year at Stateline, oh, there's Jeff. Get that you're doing your job. And that's all I'd have, right? And my reaction would be, well, Vegas isn't it either, right? I'm going to California where they appreciate me. And I have this sensitivity. And my sensitivity is borderline insane, right? I get my feelings hurt when I am not invited to things that I don't want to be at in the first place. How do you describe that to anybody, right? That's what it's like, though. Sitting around, hey, you going to Tom's Move on Friday? No, I wasn't invited, right? I suddenly become Eeyore from Winnie in the Pooh. I'm over there moping, kicking rocks. Oh, well. Do you want to go? No, I don't want to go. My God. Tom collects pianos. I don't want to be anywhere near that move. But I want to be invited so I can make something up as to why I'm not there. I compare the way I feel to the way you look, and I always come up short. Nobody looks as anxious as I feel. Nobody looks as guilty as I walk around feeling. And the worst part about my guilt is a lot of the time, I don't even know what I'm guilty about. I just feel it. Have you ever been so guilty that you finally do screw up something and it's almost a relief? It's like, this is why. I must have known this was coming. This is why I've been walking around feeling this way. I don't know how to describe this kind of stuff to anybody. I can't talk to people. I can't be myself. I live perpetually in a state of fear, and I don't know how to get out of it. And I think something's horribly wrong with me. I feel different. When Sharon talks about the spacecraft coming back, I identify. I remember having those exact same thoughts. I remember this idea, this beautiful fantasy of some spaceship landing saying, hey, we sent you down here as a scout. We had to wipe your memory, but now we're bringing you back in because you don't belong here. Tell me something I don't know, right? I don't fit. I'm not comfortable in my own skin, and I don't know what to do. Now, the answer for me was found when I was 15 years old. The answer for me is alcohol. See, everything that I'm describing right now doesn't necessarily make me an alcoholic. It makes me neurotic. But there's one key factor and there's a lot of people who are neurotic, right? But the difference between me and them is that alcohol will fix the problem for me. That's why when people later on started coming out of the woods expressing their concern over my drinking, I would think, yeah, but you don't understand. Look, I admit that it's gotten out of hand. I admit that I indulged too much. I get that. But there's something else here. You're asking me to take away the one thing that seems to make me feel okay. See, I didn't drink so I just got goofy. I'm not a guy who drinks because I'm going to put a lampshade on my head and have a little fun at a party. I drink because, as Clancy says, it goes boom. It goes into my soul, and it fills up all of these holes and deficiencies. As Ralph said last night, I become the real me. I become that guy. I become someone that's like, this is who I've always known I was this guy. Finally, you're all going to get to see it, because it's pretty wonderful, trust me. And I'm witty, and I'm intelligent, and I'm insightful, and I'm caring, and I can dance, and I can fight, and I can do all of these different things, right? It's the guy I want to be. I don't want to be me. I don't want to be the person I walk around. Another thing I used to do is try and change my personality, right? I just thought on a dime you could change your personality. And one day I remember that we were sitting at some party and somebody pointed some guy out, some cool guy in a cowboy hat or something. And they said, hey, that's so-and-so. He doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. And I thought, oh, yes, I want to be like that. I want to be a guy who doesn't care what anybody thinks, right? So I adopted that personality. And I just started walking around telling people, I don't care what anybody thinks. Baiting that trap. And finally somebody was coming along one day, I told them, hey, I don't care what anybody thinks. So they're like, well, that's good, Jeff, because Steve doesn't like you. Why? And what did I do? I don't like Steve. And I'm not macho, I'm not tough. But when I'm drinking, somebody else. Best way I describe it, I wish I had a better way, but I don't. We go out, I'm young, I'm in high school. We go out to a party in North Dakota, we do a lot of drinking and bonfires out in fields and stuff, and I'm there and I'm feeling inadequate, I'm feeling out of place. All these thoughts are racing through my head and I don't like it, and I don't like the way I am. And somewhere along the lines, though, some guy walks in, right? Some guy that was always intimidated me. He looks cool. He's got his hat on backwards. Everybody's high-fiving him. I hate that guy, right? I just hate him. And then she walks into the room. She, of course, being the girl of my dreams, and knowing full well in my heart that if I could just be with her, everything would change for me. But no girl like that is ever going to be interested in a guy like me. So why even give her the satisfaction of rejecting me at this party? It's not going to happen. And I sit there trapped in a bondage of self and fear, and I can't get out of it until I start drinking. When I start drinking, something happens. A change takes place. Everything starts to look different. I look out at this party and I start thinking, it's a pretty good thing I came here because I'm making this party, right? So the rest of these people are punks and they don't know what they're doing. And I start rectifying wrongs. I go over to Mr. Hat on Backwards, tough guy, right? And I let him know, hey man, about an hour ago there was tension between us. He doesn't know there was tension. He just showed up at the party, but there was tension. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're looking for trouble, you found it, buddy. And oh God, I don't know if it sounds cool, but man, it felt cool saying it. And turn and walk away. And now we're going to go find her, right? There's no fear, there's no anything. We're going to go find her and set things right. And I walk right up to her with a confidence of 1,000 horses, man, whatever that means. And just made that up. You know what? I don't want to buck the blame, but I actually, on that last one, I did pray on that one. So I'm going to blame that one on God. Hey, if you can make fun of Dr. Bob, I'm going to make fun of God. Let's just go all out. And I remember thinking on Marty's talk too, I'm like, I don't know that I would make fun of Dr. Bob on Friday the 13th. This is spooky. And so I'm keeping my distance just in case. So I go up to her with a lot of confidence and I let her know, hey, listen, it's me and you, right? I could have anyone I want at this party, male or female, and I'm choosing you. And it's a beautiful thing. She doesn't seem to reciprocate my interests. I don't mind. I'm not bothered at all by that. I lock her in a bathroom or a car or something until she comes to her senses. And I drink a little too much, yes. I get out of hand. I get stupid. But there's always a reason. There's always an excuse. There's always something that just needs to be tweaked so that I can continue to search for the great obsession of all of us in this room, the idea somehow, someday that I will control and enjoy my drinking. Because for me to enjoy it, I am not controlling it. And on the rare times when I have controlled it, I will assure you that I do not enjoy it. So I need to find this mix. I need to find this balance on just, and I was always drinking to get there, right? Once I get there, then I'm going on maintenance. But I don't go on maintenance. And so I continued to try all these different attempts, to try these different ways in which I could figure things out and be okay, and I continued to digress. I continued to get worse. Eventually what happened for me was no different. I ended up at a party one night. By this time I was becoming what I would call a sloppy drinker. I was the type of guy who was way drunk as everyone else was just trying to enjoy a good time. I was the type of guy who was passing out and waking up while other people are just arriving at the party. I was the kind of guy who always was doing something embarrassing, or I was calling ex-girlfriends a lot, at 3 in the morning to profess my love, and which is just such a horrible thing. And I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how at 21 years old I've ended up here. I too went out to be the President of the United States. In a minute, I'm going to tell you about a detour that I took to the psych ward. And I don't know any President of the United States who's done that. Know a few who should, but don't boo me. I may be talking about the guy you don't like. Anyway. So I'm now in this party, and I'm drinking, and I'm obnoxious, and I hurt all the time. I always hurt. And one night I just got it in my head that if I can't feel better, I'm going to make all of you feel bad. And every gift that God's ever given me with observation and the ability to read people and ability to communicate came out right there. And I just started blasting people. And just slowly but surely the party got quieter and quieter. And eventually it was just everyone on one side of the room and me on one. And this girl stepped forward and she said, "What's the matter with you?" And deep inside of me where the truth lied, the answer was, I don't know. I have no idea what's wrong with me. I don't know. If you'd have come to me right then and there and said, "Well, we know what's wrong with you, Jeff, you're an alcoholic," I'd have said, "No, I am not." Are you willing to bet your life on that? Absolutely I am. That's not it. I know it looks like it. I know that's what it seems like. But that's not it, okay? Now I'm going to stop the talk there and go in a different direction for a minute. I want to talk a little bit about alcoholism. And I want to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to tell you a few things about Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm sure you all know. By the way, I meant to say this at the beginning, but it's not lost on me. We have a lot of active AA enthusiasts in the room. Very knowledgeable on the Big Book, very practical in the actions that they take. And I know many of you are probably wondering, why didn't he have the part read that actually addresses step 1 in the Big Book? Why did he have this ambiguous, weird paragraph read that has nothing to do with anything? Because I think the paragraph that we read, this tremendous fact for every one of us, ultimately is the culmination of what we're going to be doing this weekend. I'll get to what the book says, trust me. But anyway, I've always found it interesting that Alcoholics Anonymous does not define alcoholism, right? Think about that for a minute. I mean, Lee got up and gave this great talk. We talk about our growth. We talk about the fact that we're selling 1 million books a year. We're so successful. We have rooms full of sober people. Yay, yay, yay. AA gets a lot of good press, right, in the positive way. And yet, here we are, and we don't even define alcoholism. There's no other organization in the history of the world that would even try this, right? I'm going to form the American Heart Association. Oh, good idea, Jeff. What's heart disease? Well, I don't know. I don't define it. That's not my job. And but here's AA, right? So you're new, and you walk in the door. What's the first question that you have, right? What is alcoholism? Yeah, we don't know. We're not sure. Okay. Do I have it? We can't tell you that. That's not what we do here. Okay. What should I do? You do what we do. That's what you do. And what will I get? You'll get what we have. Welcome home. And fourth dimension, second door on the left. Now, I'm poking a little fun at AA. I blame Mari. But I'll tell you why all of those things are true. We don't define alcoholism because we're not teaching here, contrary to the way some people sometimes act. We're sharing. This isn't a program that's going to get in your face and say, hey, we've been watching you. We got spies everywhere, and you're one of us, right? That might be nice, but we don't do that here. What we do is share. We share our experience, our strength, and our hope. We give you the dignity and the freedom of choice to make up your own mind. Each one of us we may have been drug in here, but at some point or another, we had to make the decision on whether or not we were an alcoholic. That, to me, is step one. The steps that you see on the wall are worded, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, dash, that our lives have become unmanageable, and I think that's great. But in the way that our big book is laid out, and it is laid out very specifically, we have the doctor's opinion that states the problem very well. Then we have Bill's story, because of course this isn't just a transmission of information. You have to be able to relate. And Dr. Silkworth, not being an alcoholic, that's why he was moved from page 1 to the Roman numerals, but ultimately still very good information. Now we have Bill's story for you to relate to. Once you get done with Bill's story, you start thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe I have this. Good. Continue on along with us. There's a solution. Are you kidding me? There's a solution? Yeah. Awesome news. The solution is God, power greater than yourself. And you know what they knew about us? All of us, when we got to that point, we're going to go, I don't like that solution at all. We're the only people who have a deadly illness and bitch about the solution. But that's what we do. We say, I don't know that I really like that solution. I don't know that it's going to work for me. That's why the next chapter is more about alcoholism. More information to prove to you just how screwed you are. That's what they're doing right there. They're hammering us back over the head. And in that chapter, it's going to cover step 1, but it's going to use different language. It's going to say we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were real alcoholics. That's what it's asking me to do. It's not about me walking into a room and saying that I'm an alcoholic. It's about me understanding at my core that I am. And I only get to that point by listening to you. By your freedom of sharing willingly with your experiences allowed me to identify something inside of me that I thought was so unique. I went through little steps along the way of discovering that different aspects that I thought were part of some weird hybrid mental illness that I have is truly just part of my alcoholism. That's what I have. Fully concede. Now concede, and I'm not going to get into wordsmith and everything, but I do think there's some importance in understanding what certain words mean. Concede, right? Sometimes my wife and I will get into a fight. And occasionally, this is going to blow your mind, she actually has a point. And on those rare times, I will sometimes, in the course of this disagreement, I've been sober too long to fight with my wife, but we'll have disagreements that get heated. And I will sometimes stop myself and I will say, you know what, you're right, I concede the point to you. That's what I'm doing. I'm stopping the battle of whatever it is I'm trying to prove, admitting that I'm wrong, and acknowledging that you are correct. Now, what is it I'm conceding to my innermost self? What a lot of people have been telling me for a long time. People who love me, people who know. I even had drinking buddies telling me that I was alcoholic. Do you know how bad you have to be for those kind of people to say, hey, I know we're a bunch of idiots, but man, you need to stop drinking, right? I have had all of these people telling me, and I could never hear it because I was trapped by a delusion that there was something else wrong with me. What smashed the delusion was hearing what alcoholism really is, was by listening to you, was by you explaining to me in your experience, strength, and hope what you go through, providing me an opportunity to have the dignity to say, I'm like that. See, it's funny, I say it as a jest thing, but we don't have a definition. Am I an alcoholic? We can't tell you that. It's not our job. I don't think it would work if we did. You have to tell you that. What do? You do what we do. What do I get? You'll get what we have. And what we have is a way out. What we have is a solution that works miraculously if we let it. And believe me, I get in the way all the time. But that's what's going on. And I listened to you and I heard alcoholism described in a way that I had never even knew was alcoholism. I heard it described as a threefold illness that affects me physically, mentally, and spiritually. The physical side of things is just this. In our book, in the doctor's opinion, it talks about a phenomenon of craving. That means, and I remember reading that, I'm like, I don't know that applies to me. I didn't even know what it meant. I'm so close-minded, though, I'm just quickly turning the page. And the sponsor had to slow me down and say, let's talk about this. Do you understand the concept of when you start to drink, you lose the ability to control your intake? Yeah, I get that all the time. There's an old proverb that says a man takes a drink, and then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. There's my story in a nutshell. I take a drink, and the drink calls out for more. And I drink to satisfy a craving that is beyond my control. That's why so many times I went out and I'm just drinking 6, I'm just drinking 8, I'm just drinking whatever. I'm just getting there. And I don't ever stay there. I go way beyond it, right? So I have an allergy. I have an allergy to alcohol that causes me to not be able to stop drinking. Now, allergies are easy to understand, right? Let's talk about a different kind of allergy. Let's talk about if you're allergic to bananas, right? And you physically break out in red hives when you eat bananas. My question would be, how far down that rabbit hole do you go, right? Do you walk around and think, when I eat Chiquita bananas, I break out in hives, but I think I'm going to try Dole bananas. They're grown in a warmer climate, and we'll see if that works. No, you don't do that. You don't keep bananas at your house just in case someone comes by and wants a banana. I don't want to be rude. So yeah, I'll keep some bananas around. I don't lie to my family and say, hey, you know what? It's a nice night. I think I'm going to go for a walk so I can run down to the market and scarf down 6 bananas. I don't have a banana in my glove box so that if the day gets too long and tiring, I can run out to the parking lot, smush that down, and then go face the world. I don't do any of that. You know what else I don't do? I don't join Bananas Anonymous and get a sponsor and work these 12 steps to somehow magically stay away from bananas one day at a time. I don't do any of that. I just quit eating bananas. I just move on. And yet far worse things happen to me when I drink alcohol than just breaking out in red hives. Why can I not stay away from alcohol? What is the problem? And this gets into the second part of my illness, this mental obsession of the mind to drink alcohol. First time I heard that was a sponsor taking me through the book, and I said, no, it doesn't seem to apply to me at all. And he said, why is that? I said, I don't sit around thinking about alcohol all the time. Believe me, I got lots of other things I think about, all revolving around me, but certainly not just alcohol. And he said, that's not what we're talking about. He said, what we're talking about is that your mind over any given period of time starts to block out all of these reasons why you're not supposed to drink for the insane idea that it will be different this time. See, it's always a sober mind that leads me back to the first drink. Flawed logic, yes, but always. I've had some horrible, horrible things happen to me while drinking. I've done things that were terrifying. I've done things that were life-threatening. I've ended up in the psych ward on a botched suicide attempt drunk. I've been arrested in Mexico because a transaction that I was trying to make, and that's all I'm going to say about that, went south. And a federale was watching this transaction take place. He came over and tried to stop it. And I told him, I'm an American, and I'm an American badass, and you don't tell me what to do anywhere. And the American badass ended up in jail crying, wanting his mom. And do you think I sobered up after that? No. My reaction was, I'm never going to Mexico again. And that's always my reaction, is to cut off whatever specific piece of the puzzle is there. I go out with Don, and I get drunk, and we both get drunk, and I get wild. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not quitting drinking. I'm just not going to drink with Don anymore. He's a bad influence. I'm not going to drink tequila anymore. I'm not going to whatever. But my mind always brings me back. And some of the ideas, some of the reasoning I have for going back are insane. Absolutely insane. But here's the thing. It's not going under heavy cross-examination, right? I remember I'd gotten this idea in my head that I was only going to drink on road trips. It was a great idea. They say that we can increase the list ad infinitum. I'd like to think that's my one jewel I bring to the table. And hey, I remember thinking I can only drink on road trips. And so we were heading out of town, and I'm sitting in the back, and there's a cooler of beer. And I had told everyone, of course, that I was quitting drinking because I got a big mouth and I talk about myself a lot. And so as soon as we got out of town, I reach in that cooler and I grab a beer and I crack one. And my buddy, he's like, "Hey man, I thought you quit drinking." I'm like, yeah, not when I'm on road trips, only when I'm at home, right? And that made perfect sense to me. Made sense to the people I drank with too. They're, "Oh yeah, of course, Jeff, go ahead." And by the way, that night not to get into specifics, but I got mildly kidnapped. It's a long story, but I mean, it's a loose interpretation of the word kidnapped, but I went places with a person I didn't know against my will. So that's all I'm saying about that. I don't think I've ever mentioned that one from the podium. Anyway, but I cannot quit drinking. My mind brings me back. Now, what I am describing is deadly illness that you'll die from. A mind that brings me back to drinking and a body that's going to cause me to drink more. And I haven't even gotten to the third. The third component of my illness is a spiritual malady, a spiritual deficiency, the fact that I am cut off from something that I am not supposed to be cut off from. There's a lack of power in my life that I don't even know is there. I only know it by its symptoms. And its symptoms always resonate with me in this way. My natural state of being when I am not drinking alcohol is to have increased feelings of restlessness, irritability, and discontentment. That's who I am at my core. I will submit to you right now, if there's anyone in the crowd tonight who might be going through a little something or have gone through something in the last 6 months, which I don't want to judge, but I'm going to say is everyone in this room, you can trace it back to some form of restlessness, irritability, or discontentment. My restlessness always comes out the same way. I am not living the life I'm supposed to live. And I don't know what it is, but I need to make some kind of a change. I need to change jobs, I need to change spouses, I need to change my personality, I need to lose weight, I need to gain weight, I need to join the gym, I need to something, right? But I always seem to be going through some kind of a personality conflict of sorts when I'm in it. I'm discontent. Nothing keeps its shine with me. And I react very immaturely to that because I want things and expect things to be shiny all the time. Is that too much to ask? You know, when I got into my relationship with my now wife, honestly, and I didn't say it outright, but this is really what I asked her. This is what it's like to date me. I need you to treat me special today and better tomorrow. And if you can just follow that path for the rest of our lives, we'll be fine. And but there's no end to it. Let me assure you, there is no top of the mountain. It goes all the way to space. And it doesn't work. So my discontentment starts to stem from the fact that I don't really like this. Because I get things. They can be big and they can be small. I'm so trivial. I'm so shallow and fickle that I can literally improve my mood just by a new shirt. Right? I can put a new shirt on and be, whoo, I look good in this. And I walk around with the confidence of 1,000 horses. Yeah, I'm going to make that stick. By God, it's going to be on a shirt somewhere. And I'm just not getting off that train. I may be suffering from a delusion right in front of you right now. I think it's cool. But I feel more confident simply because I'm wearing a new shirt. So idiotic I am, right? Except next week, right? Now we're going to something else. Why don't you wear that shirt? Nah, I don't like the way that shirt fits. It's lost its shine. I get a new car, right? Now I'm confident. This car is baller. And until I pull up to a red light and somebody pulls up in a different color, or God forbid, a newer model, and I look over and I'm like, no, this isn't it either, right? And this is where another part of my condition starts to set in, which is this deep sense of self-pity, right? I remember my sponsor telling me that I had a lot of self-pity, and I'm like, I don't think that's true at all. And he's like, which is normally my reaction to a lot of the things he said. But he's like, do you even know what it means? Like, well, it means that you sit around crying all the time. And he's like, no, it means that you have a belief that your life is harder than other people. Well, yeah, I have that, of course. It's not even a belief. I would argue that's truth. And so that's what happens to me, right? I start to go into this discontent phase, and I react poorly to everything. And then I'm irritable. I am tired of life going the way that nothing ever breaks my way. I work twice as hard to get half the results of other people. If you pinned me down and asked for any empirical data on that fact, I wouldn't have it. I just knew it to be a truth. How do I know? Because I can just tell. I can just look around, look at them, look how happy everyone is, look how happy. Because another thing about me is it seems like everyone's happy to see each other and they tolerate me. This has never happened, but this is how it's felt. Is someone, hey, good to see you, good to see you. Hey, Jeff, right? That's how it feels. And I want to lash out, right? Because I go through these periods of irritability. So my natural state is to be restless, irritable, and discontent. And there's two ways that I can fix that natural state. One is to experience a sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. And the key part of that line is that comes at once. Let me tell you something. Any solution that includes the line comes at once, I'm a fan of, right? I like that. I go into the doctor and I'm sick and he gives me two options. Here, this pill, take it and at once you feel better. Here's another one. Take it for 60 days without fail and your symptoms will slowly eradicate. Which one are you choosing, right? So the choice I have is to take a few drinks and provide that sense of ease and comfort. And ease and comfort is a perfect way to describe the reaction I get to alcohol. Because my life seems the opposite, hard and uncomfortable. That's how things feel and look to me. The other option that I have is to continue on this path, eventually having something, if I can make it happen, and as was talked about, if I can make this spiritual awakening happen. And I know that's not an attractive option. I know that if you're sitting in this room tonight, you think, I don't even know that I want that. But a spiritual awakening, a psychic change, a personality change, sufficient enough to bring about recovery from alcoholism, casting aside old ideas and attitudes and beliefs for a completely new set. Call it whatever you want. I've got to find a way to make it happen in my life. And for me to allow that to happen, because you're going to hear how to make that happen this weekend. You're going to hear the steps that we need to take to produce that kind of an effect in our lives, to make that kind of a connection with a power greater than ourselves. And I know the speakers that are coming, you're going to hear in vivid detail what needs to be done. But it will all be for naught until you can occupy your seat. And to occupy your seat, you have to come to this conclusion that what's wrong with me, I have to be able to concede to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. I used to keep a journal. I don't know why I did this. I've never really stopped to think about it. But I kept a journal, but I only wrote in it when I was drunk. I would come home drunk and depressed and stuff, and then I would start journaling about what I thought was wrong with me, what I needed, all these different things. And it was just diary of a madman. And but I'm always, pontificating on different things that I think need to happen. And my last entry in the journal is on March 17th of 1992. My sobriety date is March 16th. But on the next day, I wrote in it, and I said, my name is Jeff, and I am an alcoholic. And that's my problem. And that's always been my problem. And for the last 27 and a half years, that fact is what I now bet my life on. That fact is what allows me to come in here and occupy my seat. That fact is what allows me to belong to Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I belong here, if I am with you, then I have a chance. Until that decision is made, until that is admitted to myself, AA will always be a nice place for you, but it will never work for me. And that's a simple fact. And by listening to you, by identifying with the way you drank, the way you thought, the way you felt. I mean, I poke fun at people. I poke fun at Lee about being sensitive. I poke fun at Leslie about everything. But the reason I do that is because I identify with them. Because I get it, and I need that identification. Because I'll tell you something else about step one. I will forget it. This is not a one-and-done step. I will forget it in different ways. When I was 11 years sober, I'm sure we don't have anyone in the room who's experienced this, but when I was 11 years sober, I got just a tick self-righteous. And with that self-righteousness, I was given a gift from God, and that is the ability to tell what everyone else is doing wrong in Alcoholics Anonymous. And more importantly, where it is in the book that backs me up for being right. And I went on an ass-kicking traditions supporting mission to just get rid of all the bad eggs in AA. And it's good I wasn't successful. I probably would have had to kick myself out now that I think about it, but that's how much I adhere to these principles. I don't even let myself in anymore. But I mean, I was just a jerk. And I would get in arguments and stuff, and I had all these ridiculous things I would say to people that couldn't even be verified. I remember one guy, we got into some argument. It was important. It was like 12 or 8-ounce coffee cups. Newcomers' lives hang in the balance. But he was opposing me a little too much. And I remember I stood up and I'm like, you want to know something? If Bill Wilson were here, he'd agree with me. And wow, isn't that impressive? Hey, everybody, Jeff's now speaking for Bill Wilson. He's gone but not forgotten. Thank God. Get this guy to New York. So my sponsor, I was so oblivious that this was even a problem, I wasn't even talking to him about it, right? Talk about what? But other people were talking to him, let me tell you that. And so he called me one day, which that's a rarity too. Right? I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And something inside of me was like, I don't think he's calling to tell me good job. I've never had that kind of sponsorship, right? When I see my sponsor's number on the phone, it's something's up, and it ain't ever going to be good. You know what I mean? Maybe you have that. Hey, Jeff, I just was sitting here thinking about you, and I just wanted to tell you, all of AA appreciates all your efforts, and a lot of your altruism goes unnoticed, but I see it. Keep going, buddy, and that's not the call. Anyway, that's not the call I got. He called, wanted to talk to me. This is when I got introduced to the term bleeding deacon, and he wanted to talk to me about my behavior. And he put me on a diet. He said, listen to me right now. He said, from here on out, when you go to a meeting, I want you to stop before you walk in the door, and I want you to say this to yourself every time. I am here because I cannot quit drinking on my own. Step one, relearned again, right? In a different way, in a different mentality. And I still do that. I still do that when I walk into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous. I stop and pause and get right-sized. Because I hate to say it, but I can still be so judgmental. And that's fine. That's fine to be a little goofy with a few friends. But I'm telling you, judgmental it's a scary double-edged sword that could slice me right out of here if I'm not careful, right? So I had to say that to myself. I had to relearn once again this concept, this idea that I am powerless over alcohol. I had to again concede that point. And I've had to do it many a times. There are things, and I don't want to get into the rest of the actions I took because I want to leave all the rest of the steps for our other speakers, but there are, although I could pontificate for 16 hours, I'm running out of gas now. I'm already kicking it. How do I get 10 more minutes here? There are things that I need to do. There are things that I have always had to do to ensure that my sobriety and my recovery stay in my life. I need to keep Alcoholics Anonymous and the efforts that I do here first. And I know that sounds backwards sometimes because Ralph said it again last night, don't let the life AA gave you get in the way of your AA life, and it's very true. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a lot of wonderful gifts and blessings. Sometimes I'm so caught up in them that I start deciding I don't have time to do AA. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know that I want to get on a plane and fly there and talk and do this. That's fine, maybe that's okay, but where does it end? Sometimes it's cold and some guy wants to go talk, and it's like, I don't know that I want to get in my car and drive way over there and listen to that, right? Okay, maybe I can do that. Well, then what? Some night it becomes, I don't know that I want to pick up the phone and listen to that guy talk incessantly about himself. And someday I'm drunk and I lose everything. And you know what the only benefit to that is? Now I got time for AA again, right? But there's an easier, softer way. And so I have to have things in my life. If this room is my sobriety, if this is my recovery, I got to have somebody at all the doors. I got to have people. I have to have commitments. I have to have a working understanding of the steps. I have to have sponsorship. I have to be on the other side of sponsorship. And that doesn't mean you need to be sponsoring people. But it does mean you should have some semblance of the concept of working with others. Giving of your time. One of my biggest pushbacks was, I don't have anything to offer anyone new. And my sponsor said, do you have time? I have that. I have plenty of that. I didn't have much going on. Give of that. Take an interest in people, right? Those are the kinds of things that I need to do. Trying to practice and uphold our traditions so that Alcoholics Anonymous is here, not only for me, but for future generations. I have 3 kids. There's a high probability that one or more of them are going to need Alcoholics Anonymous. By the way, side note, I, of course, from the day they were born, have been studying them to figure things out. And I've got 3 kids. I have a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And the 12-year-old When she was 2 years old, I started to notice behaviors in her that I would consider to be alcoholic. And I became very alarmed by this. And I called my sponsor and I said, look, this is bad, but my 2-year-old is acting like an alcoholic. And I don't know what we can do, but do something. And my sponsor, he said, you know, Jeff, he said, it's understandable why you'd think that. He said, but you've got it backwards. He said, your daughter is not acting like an alcoholic. Your alcoholic friends act like a 2-year-old. And that's why I'm like, all right. That makes way more sense now that you mention it. And I need to have those moments of clarity. I need to have those things that are brought back into my life. I need to have a sponsor. You know, for a long time I used to say that, you know, how do you find a sponsor? You find someone who has what you want. I don't disagree with that. I get it. But I've changed my tune a little bit. I encourage you to find a sponsor who will push you into Alcoholics Anonymous. Always, my sponsor, the reason he's my sponsor today is for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is he always pushes me towards AA. And unfortunately, I still call him sometimes with some ridiculous, justifiable reason on why I should take this off. And he never signs off on it. And he doesn't do so because he cares about me. He cares about me and knows what I'm dealing with, and I forget sometimes what I'm dealing with. A few days or weeks of comfort, and I start thinking, I got this, right? But my sponsor always pushes me into Alcoholics Anonymous. The other thing that I think is important in sponsorship is find someone who's not impressed with you at all, right? That's really important. If somebody says to you, you know, if you ask them to sponsor you, I'd be honored. I've always hoped I could sponsor you. Get a new one, okay? That person's not going to help you at all. Let me tell you about my sponsor and how unimpressed with me he is. Now, you've probably noticed, some of you may know who my sponsor is, some of you don't, but I've been very careful not to mention him by name. I don't even think that I've looked at him tonight. And I never have when I've spoken at Stateline, but I'm going to break that rule and look at him for a second. Because it's important you understand him. Because the story I'm about to tell you is going to tarnish his reputation a little bit. Right? I call Bob. I'm at a conference. I'm at this AA conference and I'm talking to this famous Hollywood actress. Do I got your attention? That's pretty cool. And as we are talking, the dance starts. And this famous Hollywood actress says, why don't you and I go dance? Yes. And we go dance. Coolest thing ever, right? And I'm excited. And I want to share this with someone. Who can I share it with? Not my wife. So now we got to find... because that might injure her. So, as someone who practices these principles in all his affairs, I'm not going to do that. So instead, I'm like, I know I could call my sponsor, the guy in my corner, the guy who knows everything about me. So I call Bob, and I'm like, Bob, you're not going to believe this. I just danced with a famous Hollywood actress, and she asked me to dance, right? Now, if I call you with that situation, what is the question on your mind? It's the question that's going through your mind right now. Who? Right? Who was it? Bob Darrell doesn't ask me who it was. Bob says, you know, Jeff, we must always guard against the alcoholic ego. Like a lion tamer with a whip and a chair. And I literally, you know, you only see this in cartoons and stuff, but I literally did one of these pull the phones away looking at it, like, huh? And what is wrong with you? What happened to you? Look, I could forgive him for all of that, by the way. Seriously, because this was years ago. He's never asked who it is. He still don't know. And now I'm not going to tell him. So that's just not anything relevant to my recovery anymore. So Find a sponsor who's not impressed with you. I have a whole host of things that are working against me, that want to pull me out of here, and all of it resides in my own mind. Alcoholics Anonymous, there's an old saying that we have a wrench for every nut, and I believe it to be true. Anything that's ever been wrong with me, I have found the solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I was 15 years sober, I went through a period of what I would call my second surrender, and I was convinced, and I'm not saying this to be funny, I was convinced that I was having a mental breakdown, that something was wrong with me. And a man came into town and told me, there's nothing wrong with you that the steps can't fix. And I thought, I wish it was that simple. I'm here to tell you it was. I'm here to tell you that it has been that simple. That what I have needed is Alcoholics Anonymous. That's it. And I want to say something. I don't normally do this. I'm not a big soapbox guy or anything, but I feel the need, so I'm going to, if I get in trouble, my sponsor's here, he'll correct me. But interestingly enough, I have had 5 people reach out to me in the last 2 weeks asking me how they can become a speaker in Alcoholics Anonymous, because they have something that needs to be shared and they want to know how they can get there. And I always tell them, well, we have a form and I'll need references, and I've been telling them the same thing. And again, look, I'm not judging them. I wanted to be a speaker once upon a time for like a day, but there's nothing wrong with it. But they never like the answer that I'm giving them. And the answer is this: if you want to speak in AA, right, be a good AA member. Do things that require you to be involved in other people's lives. Give your best talks at a Denny's booth somewhere across the table from one person. You do that, and I promise you, God will take you wherever He thinks He needs you to carry His message. But if your arrogance and your ego is getting in the way, like, no, I can't do this one-on-one, I need to do it to the masses. You're upside down on it, I'm telling you right now. So what I have learned is that I want to be a good AA member. Last Thursday night, I gave a better talk than the one I'm giving here right now. The unfortunate part was that it was in a car with one guy, and my CD player broke, so I wasn't able to record it. And I'm kidding. And I want to stay right-sized. If I get to come to Stateline sometimes, fantastic. But there's a joke going around about not thanking the committee members. I'll tell you who I'd like to thank. All of the people who take time off from work and spend money out of their own bank accounts to make the trip to Las Vegas to be a part of this weekend. Thank you for being here. Because the best talks are not happening here, they're happening out there. And I've been a part of them. I'm going to close with this and sit down. Years ago, I was looking around at what Alcoholics Anonymous has to offer. I'm always that kind of guy. And I was in particular keying in on happy, joyous, and free. And I started thinking, I understand freedom. I get freedom from the bondage of self, freedom from alcohol and the desire to drink. I get all of that. But I don't know that I understand happiness and joy completely and what the difference is. And I want to make sure you're not using the same word to describe, or 2 different words to describe the same emotion, because I'm going to be gypped if that's the case. And I started asking around, and people didn't seem to know. And a few years ago, right at Christmas, I had an experience happen that showed me the difference. And it was just this. My son at the time, I don't know how old he was, but he was a teenager. He wanted a certain kind of laptop. And we had bought it. We had told him, though, that we weren't able to get it. We weren't going to be able to afford it. And then it's one of that gift, we wrapped it in an oversized box to throw him off the scent and all that stuff. And it's the gift that you tuck away in the corner, and it's the last one that we were going to open that night. And when my son opened the package, and the realization that came over his face that he had gotten the laptop that he asked for, it can only be described as pure happiness. Pure happiness. And then I looked over to my left at his mother watching him, and I saw pure joy. We get both here. Happy. We have good things and we have bad things happen, but we have a lot of neat things happen. I stood up here last year in front of you. I was unemployed. Then I went to work for a job starting in January. A few months ago, I took a promotion, a big promotion, as a matter of fact. I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm sure I'll be unemployed next year again, trust me. But it's a lot of fun. But we get to be happy. We get to be happy. Sometimes everything does seem to go your way. Sometimes the boss calls you in to tell you good job. Sometimes every light is green. Sometimes we get to have our way. But we get something else too. We get joy, and I would have never known to ask for that. I was joking around at the beginning, but if you notice the verbiage I used to describe Leslie, I said joy. And when you strip away all the jokes and the jabs I was taking at Leslie, I experienced real joy for her because I know what a journey this has been. And I'm not vested in that. I'm not anything. I didn't know I could be happy for someone else. I didn't know that my heart could feel that way when I'm not the one seemingly benefiting. You've shown me that. You've given me that. And everything that I have in my life, my family, my occupation, my peace of mind, my sanity, my relatively clean criminal record, all of that stems from the fact that I walked in here with you people and I listened. I listened to what you were willing to share with me, and I said, I have that too. I conceded to my innermost self that I'm a real alcoholic, and because of that, I punched a ticket that has taken me on a ride for the last 27 and a half years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Now let's close with the Lord.